let's talk about Castra, the next star system, which straight off the bat, I don't think is coming in 2026. I personally don't want to come in. I hope it doesn't come in 2026. We got other stuff to work on. We got, I mean, we could even see right here, we have a few different things in Nyx that need to be built out, from the rock cracker stations to the municipal works to tactical strike groups to the planets that still aren't there. But besides that, I would also like to see Nyx have functioning reputation, as well as Pyro. Honestly, Pyro, Castra, and Nyx. Pyro, Stanton, and Nyx. They all need to have security. They need to have functioning reputation. They need to have a solid amount of contracts. They need to have outposts that actually have things to do. I don't think it really makes a lot of sense to add Castra when all those things can still be happening for the other three systems. And I want to go into some real detailed situations and explanations as to why. The first thing that I'd like to touch on real quick before we get deep into Castra is a little slide here that they have. We're going to do this. We're going to look at Castra, and then we're going to take a step back and go through the entirety of what Castra is. But there's a specific slide somewhere in this. Here we go. This. Check this out. So this is 2019, I believe. And they gave us a real nice presentation here.
So it's
check this out.
more recent to modern day, current day in the game. If you look at Lowville,
this is really important.
Something that felt old, you know, not necessarily well maintained. And Area 18, it was a bit more of a dystopian kind of like neon city. So we already knew right at the beginning that New Bab would need something new. And also, like I said, for the narrative, it was very appropriate. We'd need something that was no longer in our asset database.
So he's basically explaining that before they had Hurston and ArcCorp that both used what they call a utilitarian art style. This is something that you see from the hangars very specifically, but you also see it from outposts, from the city structure itself, from the UI. A lot of the different things that they do in these areas are supposed to represent the archetype of their architectural style. And they haven't dove too far into this, to be honest. They've done some amounts of differentiating these things, but I think that once we start getting to the point where they're focused more on content and flavor than just like getting functionality into the game, this is going to make a pretty big difference. But back at this point, we were just getting Microtech, and Microtech was introducing the first new architectural style in the game.
And also, like I said, for the narrative, it was very appropriate. We'd need something that was no longer in our asset database. So this is a slide which we use internally. It's basically our internal architectural style document. So for Star Citizen, we don't want a kind of a bland game. You know, we want it to feel like it's kind of got a rich history. You know, as you're going around, you see architecture from different periods. Much like if you walk around Manchester, you know, you'll see architecture from different time periods, and it kind of gives you a type of layer and a type of depth to the game. That's ultimately what we want Star Citizen to achieve. So
clearly, now we can see utilitarian being ArcCorp in Area 18 and Lorville is just one of several different styles. High-tech being Microtech and Orison and Crusader also makes some sense, but we've got several other things here. We've got colonialism, streamline, metaclassicism, Henoism, and supermodernism. Colonialism is the most interesting and important one because, as you can read on the page itself, it says down here, frontier vibe, use of natural resources. And whenever you hear them talk about their sort of method of building out Pyro, those are the kinds of things they say.
I don't know if you remember this, but at SitCon in 2021, we showed this new style of Outpost for the first time. Now, at this point, we had our art style locked in. We'd worked on our library of content to the point where we could make smaller locations like this one, but with a limited amount of variety between each one. And this is what that library of modules looked like at that point. We'd established our main building modules, as well as some of our larger buildings and a number of smaller secondary and dressing and standalone modules. But each outpost...
So this is in the space of 2 years they do this asset library expansion.
So let's have a look at that library today.
Now, this is great. I appreciate how much they expanded this. This to this, huge difference, right? Could you guys imagine if the Pyro outposts were all built using this set of buildings? This is a much better set. That being said, it can still feel quite repetitive. So with 2 years of work, plus additional years of planning, plus the fact that this was already kind of an asset library that had been worked on in Stanton's abandoned Pyro outposts and the derelict ships and all that kind of stuff, this was all meant to build into that frontier style archetype. And it worked well for them because this was something that, like I just said, also was applicable to Stanton. They had derelict outposts that they had to use some of this kind of style for. And throughout the addition of all of these assets, they kind of talk about here how it will also be used to mix and match into different various outposts and towns, and even getting different styles and layerings to make you realize that while it might be in the same library of assets, it is used by a different faction or something.
We just see there. Well, we categorize them in 2 different ways, as I said, and then we mix and match those categories together to provide that variation. Now, the first and primary category is the archetype, and they provide that core gameplay hook and define the main function of a settlement. So scrapyards have a landing pit module for repairs and refueling. Mining operations can have a refinery module and ore extractors for resource and commodity trading. And trading posts themselves allow a broader range of item purchases through the dedicated trade building module.
The most disappointing part about all this is, like, it sounds great and it looks good and it makes sense, but then, like you guys are saying in chat, when you get into these Pyro outposts, they're still pretty repetitive. I think a lot of that is because they don't have any life. Even though they're talking about these things having different needs, those needs aren't focused on. When you fly into an outpost that has a bunch of plants in it, you don't see people walking around that outpost with those plants, boxing them up and getting them ready to ship out because that outpost ships out plants. You just see plants. And then it's still the same outpost. It's still a commodity thing. It's still some broken down landing pad. It's still NPCs that don't answer. It's like, while all this stuff is great architecturally, the game itself still needs to catch still 2 years later, still needs to catch up to this in terms of actual activities, which is getting more and more frustrating, and why I don't think dropping in another star system that deals with these same issues is going to do a lot.
Form the look and feel of a location, not just visually, but which people you'll interact with there, how they'll respond to you based on your rep, what types of missions you'll have available to take on. So themes don't change the fundamental architecture of a space or the archetype of a location, but they do drastically alter the mood and feel, as well as altering the gameplay experience significantly. And again, let's take a look at the first of our themes, our independent theme.
So again, you get the frontier vibe, you get the natural materials that they're using to build, the stones that are supposed to come from the same planet you're on, the stucco, the fabrics. Definitely a strong vibe change from a strong vibe change from the Stanton side of things. And there's our plants. They don't do much. Okay, so that's Pyro and a little bit of Stanton that we were talking about. Now, if we go back to this page, we'll hear them talk a little bit more about some of these other archetypes, I think, maybe?
From different time periods, and it kind of gives you a type of layer and a type of depth to the game. That's ultimately what we want Star Citizen to achieve. So you can see here on the timeline, this is where the high tech is. So it's a lot more recent to modern day, current day in the game than utilitarianism. And it was kind of like the next stage coming out of the Henoism period. So we kind of thought there'd be very much an uprising in design methodologies, much more of a focus on industrial design styles, advanced manufacturing materials, things like that. That was kind of like the core pillars of what we wanted this art style to achieve.
Jump forward now 4-5 years. We're going to go forward to CitizenCon 2024, where they actually reveal that Castra is the plan for the next system. And there's a very, very specific thing that they talk about here, which is why I think that it'll take longer to make it.
Was signed, which was a peace treaty between the now UEE and the Xi'an Empire, so the Cold War ended. The systems of the Peri Line were divided up between humans and Xi'an, and fast forward back to present day, humans and the Xi'an enjoy a more prosperous relations, and everyone's cool. So, the fourth system will be Castra.
Castra! All right. Most important thing about Castra is it's got this gigantic military base because it was used in that Cold War. And there's a really, really important voice clip here that sort of describes the main reason I think it's going to take a while listening.
Since the area was decommissioned, it has now been turned into a business park and is the governmental center of CASCOM, with the Governor's Council headquarters located here. As this base was built during the Mesa era, as humans were expanding their borders, this introduces a new architectural style for humans. Between the First Travarian War on one front and the Xi'an Cold War on the other, a new style called Henoism arose.
So, we now have... This is the same guy, by the way. This is still Ian Leyland talking. We have the first version of a new architectural style here, which, as it says here, is meant to convey security. It's supposed to be bunkerish and defensive and austere. It is clearly a new set of library, or a new set of assets that they need to build a library for. And I think that is not going to come together quite like we've seen Pyro, and definitely not Nyx, which doesn't have its outpost yet, right? Before this happens, we need to get to the point where Nyx is able to support ground gameplay and has some reason to have those outposts, which would, I don't know which architectural style they'll use for those, but it's definitely the kind of thing that's going to need to be, I think it's going to take a lot of work. And then on top of that, they got the factions they need to do, space stations that need to come in, mission chains and out contracts. Like, we're still working through factions and contracts for Nyx, let alone Pyro. So I think that there's a lot more that needs to happen for Castra than what we might think, even if it was at this state 2 years ago. And I'm going to go ahead and now play out this segment so we can look at Castra and what it's supposed to offer to the game together. But that's my whole opening spiel. As exciting as Castra is, and as much as it might seem like it's going to come quickly because of what Nyx was able to do, this is a different system. It's bringing in a different understanding of the game. It's high security, so it's going to need to have a lot of NPCs active, security systems working. This is a whole new journey for them. So I think this is more likely a 27 kind of edition. Castra, everybody.
Through the clouds, you'll find a landscape full of great lakes and lush crimson forests. And as you saw in the CTG presentation, you can see how we're going to make these worlds with the new technology. High up on the mountain range, here at the highest peak, we can just make out the landing zone called Sherman. Which is fondly known by its residents as the island in the sky. Sherman is currently in pre-production, but I wanted to take the opportunity to show at least a sneak peek. Let's take a look.
Let's be honest though, how many people are excited for the system because of the music? Yeah, I see you, Johnny. I gotta say, this one is like, they keep showing this. Obviously, this is all like concept stuff, but there's so many ships flying around here and just stuff going on. And one of the biggest things that the landing zones are currently missing in Star Citizen is like, nobody's doing anything. This is one of the big things that makes me not want to see any new locations for now. We need NPCs flying around. We need trucks and cargo haulers and security personnel and little crappy ships rolling into the station that barely look like they can fly. These look super cool, but if we're flying into here and it's this giant retired military base with all this space for traffic and there's just no ships around here, that'll kind of be a bummer. It doesn't ruin the game. It's not like it's a reason to not put Castra in, but I would love to see this actually be released with the spirit they're showing here. It looks so cool and bustling. But I guess so would ArcCorp. Imagine if they showed us ArcCorp when it was like supposed to be full population. Y'all think they're gonna have the ability to go down under these clouds? Whenever we see this landing zone, I guess it kind of, you can sort of see the ground there. I can never tell how high it's supposed to be. They say it's at the top of a mountain, but I guess like the ground is supposed to be kind of right here, so it's not actually that high. You think we'll be able to like explore the ground under there? Is it just gonna be covered in fog? How are they gonna make this? What is this going to look like?
Converted from a naval base, it still has an impressive military flavor. And speaking of military flavor, the original AOV-9's anti-orbital cannons are still present around the defensive walls, with most of them being decommissioned once it became a civilian city. Over to the left of the spaceport is the Sparrows Industrial Park, home to the sprawling cargo yards and manufacturing plants. The Sparrows has evolved from its days as a military supply and munitions depot into a bustling and modern industrial park. To the right side of the spaceport is Fort Riggs, which
Cue the
originally
comments.
used to house
Yeah, leave it to CIG to put gigantic cannons inside of an industrial depot. A military base for a city makes complete sense coming from CIG.
the army when Sherman was used as a staging point for a potential ground assault of the Xi'an Empire. Since the area was decommissioned, it has now been turned into a business park and is the governmental center of CASCOM.
Business
With the-
park filled with cafes and rentable scooters.
Governor's Council headquarters located here.
I'm actually into that.
As this base was built during the
Okay, we heard this part, so I'll skip this a
called
little bit.
Hennoism arose, with an emphasis on prefabrication and fortification. The designs were robust, durable against warfare and harsh enemies and harsh environments. And from all the locations we just saw, high up on the upper wall, you can see the commercial district, and specifically the Ansel shopping complex. Situated high above the sprawling main base below, the Ansel area originally served as the command center to Sherman's military operations. Inside this building, you'll find key areas like the Edge of Oblivion Bar, which was converted from the old officers' lounge. You'll also find Eckhart's security headquarters, and you'll find the Mercenary Guild headquarters.
Eckhart. I forgot Eckhart's based in Nyx. That's right, because he was originally supposed to be in he was originally in Levski. When he first was added to the game, it was because Delamar was in the game. So they had him on Delamar. I wonder if they'll move him all the way back out here.
Other areas in the commercial district include the OPA towers for habitation. That's the building
OPA? Okay. Let's go. Beltalowda.
on the left. And on
Crossover.
the right, it's the Imperial Sherman Infirmary. There's also the Reeves Military Museum, where you can experience the history of humanity's military and the role that Castra
Yay.
has played in keeping the Empire safe.
Woohoo, human
And
military.
finally, we have Overlook Point, which is the name of the vantage point.
To be honest though, like we definitely needed the military. There was actually a point in human history in Star Citizen where we were very woefully underprepared military-wise, and it was not a good look.
And park situated in front of Central Command, which has the best view overlooking the landing zone. So that's a quick overview of some of the key areas of Sherman. I think it's devastatingly beautiful, with a rich history and unique mood and vibe. Awesome. So before I go, I want to thank you all. You are all awesome. All your passion, all your dedication
Thank
make
you.
our lives as devs so
We're
much easier.
awesome.
And thanks to the
That's pretty cool, dude.
CIG staff, who's the awesome work we're seeing in front of you.
So that really is the Castra system. It's my longest rant about why I don't think it should happen this year. Clearly there's feelings that it should. And I mean, I assumed that. Obviously we want to get our new systems as quickly as we can. But I guess this is all mainly an opinion piece. I was hoping to give you some information about Castra and some opinion on why I think maybe they should hold off on launching it.